harder to break. When you are still at the second stage, although you experience periods when your attention was continually engaged with the meditative object for as long as a minute, most of the time you are still caught up in distractions. When you reach the third stage, your attentional stability has increased so that most of the time you remain engaged with the object. Occasionally there are still lapses when you completely forget the object, but you quickly recognize them and patch up these holes in the continuity of attention. Long before you achieve this stage, you may occasionally have a session in which your mind seems to remain on the object most of the time. But don't be fooled. Even amateur golfers occasionally hit a birdie, but that doesn't mean they're ready to go on the pro circuit. The third stage is achieved, and this is how to measure how you are when you're at a particular stage, is this. The third stage is achieved only when your mind remains focused on the object most of the time in virtually all your sessions. For most people, the primary problem in this phase of practice is still coarse excitation, that's completely forgetting the object, and it is the power of mindfulness that you accomplish this third stage. So what does it mean to be at a stage? Is that if that is your normal experience. So again, at the third stage is when you can hold the object maybe 5 or 10 minutes at a time, and if you get distracted, you quickly come back. If that's your normal experience in meditation, that's what it means to be at the third stage. On some days, you may be able to focus on the object the entire session without ever losing it. So you may be having a sort of stage 4 or even stage 5 experience. And on other days, maybe you're a little bit more distracted, so you're back on stage 2. But if your normal experience is that's what it means. Now the question is, if we get to say stage 3, is this irreversible?
Irreversible?
Irreversible.
No.
Can you go back?
Yes. You're not practicing first.
So I like to use the analogy of going to the gym.
Right.
If you go to the gym regularly and you achieve a certain level of fitness, and if you stop going to the gym, do you stay that fit? No. If we do Shamatha practice and we get to stage 3 and we stop practicing, do we stay at stage 3? No. But like going to the gym, to maintain that level of fitness, you would only need to do a certain amount of work to maintain that level. To go another level, you need to do more. Yeah. Similarly here, to maintain that level, a certain amount of practice to maintain it. But if you want to go further, you need to do more. So similar idea.
So 48 minutes. You have to keep 48 minutes, or you can do it a bit less.
Well, yeah, but there's a lot to be said in that, and I'll talk a bit more about that tomorrow, I think, tomorrow afternoon. Of course, practice is not just meditating 48 minutes in the morning. Well, he's saying roughly that amount of time, and then the rest of the day you run around like crazy. You won't be at stage 3 if you do that. If you do just one meditation session in the morning, 45 minutes, and then the rest of the day, you run around like crazy, I think you're not going to manage stage 3. So we're going to have a look at what other factors we need, in addition to doing a regular daily meditation practice, what other factors to help set up our life in such a way so that we can really move along these stages in an effective way. But that's still to come.
When you talk about stop meditating.
Stop meditating, yeah.
You mean days, weeks,
Same as the gym. If you miss the gym one day, okay, but the thing is, of course, if you start skipping the gym one day here, one day there, suddenly it becomes 2 days, 3 days, and then you stop going. So similarly here, if you skip a day here and there, probably not a huge difference, but then you get in the habit of skipping. So that's really the danger, is that you start, if it becomes an option not to meditate, then you're on a slippery slide downhill, no?
Oh, just one day, it's okay. One day, and then suddenly it's 2 days, and suddenly you've stopped practicing. So, better to practice every day, and sort of really have that as not an option to not practice. Then it doesn't even enter your head that to skip a day. As soon as you start skipping, then I think we're on a slippery slide. We'll skip more and more and more. Yeah.
How you can check the time? Because how you can know that it's 1 minute, 5 minutes, it's
Well, okay.
How you can check?
Well, of course, particularly as a beginner, it's good to have a timer to meditate.
No, she's talking about staying on the object.
I know. I'm coming to that.
Sorry.
So it's good to have a timer, so you have a set amount of time to meditate. And then, of course, it's not like we have to notice that we were 7 seconds opposed to 6 or 13 seconds on the object. That's not important. I mean, you'll notice that it's like a matter of seconds, or it's sort of like half a minute or a minute, or so we don't have to be precise. And there's no advantage in knowing that, oh, I'm focusing 13 seconds instead of 12 seconds. I mean, that's not really important. It's just to notice that, are we really getting distracted in a matter of a few seconds, or are we now starting to hold it longer and longer, half a minute, 2, 5, like that. Okay, stage 4, last one for this evening. Stage 4 now, mindfulness is getting very good. So much so that now we can hold the object the entire session without ever completely losing it. But still, at stage 4, of course, we have a lot of work to do on the quality of our attention. Even now as a beginner, you may have noticed that somehow, we're focusing on the breath, and we're sort of, thinking about what's coming for lunch. Wonder what we're going to have for lunch today. But I'm still focusing on the breath. Even to the point where you're mainly thinking about lunch, but a little bit in the corner of your mind, you're still sort of holding on to the breath. That can happen at stage 4 even. But you never completely lose the object. I'm not suggesting that is the normal experience at stage 4.
Lunch in my head.
Sorry?
Lunch is all the time in my head.
Yeah, but usually our lunch is in the head and we've forgotten about the breath. Then we're back down at 1 or 2. We're daydreaming about lunch, so we're down here at 1. But at stage 4, we never completely lose the object, which means actually, even at stage 4, you could have times where you're mainly focusing on something else, but a little bit you're still holding the breath. I'm not saying that that's the normal experience at stage 4, but even that can happen even at stage 4. So over these middling stages, and we think that, oh, that's a good trick, I can focus on 2 things at once. But actually that's impossible. You can't focus on 2 things at once. What's happening, actually, is over a very short period of time, you're moving backwards and forwards between 2 things very fast in a short period, which gives the illusion that you're focusing on 2 things at once. But what's happening, of course, is your attention is completely fragmented. And so what we're doing over these middling stages is reducing that fragmentation.
How is fragmentation?
Fragmented means not. So now you'll find that when you never lose the object, but it's fragmented, you may find that when you go backwards and forwards, you're going
to the distraction for a little bit longer and back to the breath short, and it's very fragmented, where it seems like most of the time you're focusing on the distraction and less on the object. But then that fragmentation will get a little bit better in that they're a little bit longer on the object and less on distraction. So experientially it seems, and again we haven't lost the object, experientially now it seems like we're mainly focusing on the object and some background noise going on at the same time. So this is what we're doing over these middling stages, improving the quality of our attention, and also in terms of dullness as well, making the mind more sharp. But we're going to be looking at those higher stages tomorrow evening. But just one more point and then we'll finish there. Again, I mentioned it already, but just to remember, the monkey in the tree, number 19, holding the fruit. So here on these middling stages, now when our mind is becoming more calm, more clear, more focused, you'll find a lot of great ideas will start popping up. Maybe some very virtuous thoughts come up in meditation. But as we saw here, number 19 says, since virtuous thoughts are an interruption at the time of shamatha meditation, it is necessary to stop them. At other times it is not necessary. So once we get into these middling stages, you will find often a lot of great ideas will start popping up in your mind, particularly if you've had problems or things you've been trying to resolve. You may find in the middle of the meditation, here comes the answer, boosh. But what it's saying here is that this is not the right time to entertain these ideas because they're just a distraction. If some great idea comes up, just acknowledge, okay, great idea, I'll attend to that after the meditation. And if you're worried about forgetting it, you can even have a little notepad next to where you meditate. And if something comes up and you really want to look at that later and you don't want to forget it, write down 1 or 2 key words and then go back to the meditation. So otherwise you'll find, because remember over these middling stages you're probably meditating an hour or so or more, and so if you cut it every 10 or 15 minutes then that's going to interfere with the meditation if you go off and investigate some great idea in the middle of the meditation. Any questions? That's all I want to cover this evening.
With an average life, how long would this take to get through more?
I was going to address that tomorrow, but I'll give a short answer. Is that in some of the old meditation texts, they say things like, if you're someone of sharp faculty, it'll take 3 months, medium faculty 6 months, dull faculty 9 months. Maybe that's a little bit over-optimistic, I think, for us in the modern world, given where we are as a starting point and given the conditions around us as well. But certainly Alan Wallace talks about this in his book, and he basically says that modern studies show that in any high-level skill, playing music or technical skill, in any high-level skill, to become proficient in that skill, you need minimum 5,000 hours of practice. And if you want to become a master in that skill, you need 10,000 hours of practice. This is in any skill, any skill. And he's suggesting maybe it's similar here.
5,000 is 5 years? 5,000.
You have to tell us about the day.
We need to
How much?
calculate.
But what we need to remember, of course, is then often people think, oh, I can't do it, I won't try. I think this would be a big mistake, because even if we can sort of get up around to stage 3, I mean, stage 3 is way, way better than where we are now. I mean, stage 3, you can focus 5 or 10 minutes. If you get distracted, you quickly come back. I mean, already this is light years better than what our attention skills now. So if we can get here, you'll find that already our life is changed dramatically. And then when it changes dramatically, then you may find things change and you have more time and energy and conditions to go further. So
I think that to think, well, there's no way I'm going to achieve shamatha, so I won't bother. I think that would be a big shame, because I mean the benefits of this practice, whatever effort we put in, is enormous.
I have a question about what is other activities in which you use your concentration, how do they affect, does it compare? Like, for example, you're accepted to university, you have to read a certain amount of books, you have to write a paper, you have to stop, you have to think about it, you're gathering your thoughts, then you're writing it. Is it anything that has a bearing or an influence?
Huge improvement. Huge improvement. You'll be able to, now if you've got a lot of work to do, you get stressed, you get agitated, you get exhausted because you're doing this. If you really go quite well in shamatha, you'll be able to do much more in much less time, much more effective without getting exhausted. It'll be like night and day. Night and day.
Which stage? 3?
No grasping. Like I said, any work we do, already you're going to notice some change. It's not like you have to get to a certain step before you notice any improvement. The more we do, the more improvement.
About the sense object, number 10, can you repeat them? Because you did it very quickly a few days ago.
Right, okay. So the bowl of fruit is taste. To the right of that is a silk cloth. Touch, tactile. Above that there's 2 round objects which are symbols. So that's sound. To the left of that is a conch shell with some perfume in it. That's smell. And then diagonally above that is a round object which is a mirror, which is visual.
And what is this one?
That's a silk cloth, tactile, touch. Sometimes people ask me that, is there any significance to the order where they've come on the chart? I've not seen anything, but actually, when these 5 senses are listed in a text, they're usually listed in a particular order, and that's visual, sound, smell, taste, tactile. And one explanation why they're listed in that order is because that's the order they come in the body. The highest sense is visual, then sound, hearing, then smell, then taste, then tactile. And that's actually the same order here. So maybe it's just that.
When does the bliss show up?
The bliss?
Because I'm happy to commit to 15 years, but I kind of want.
I need the bliss. Give me the bliss.
Maybe 3 years in, 10 years in.
Well, here's the thing: if you're looking for the bliss, that's going to block the bliss.
My question is, when is there less effort, or like, because it's quite effortful right now to maintain a practice.
Of course, yeah, of course, because we got some strong habits, so we have to work against those habits. And I'm going to talk more about this a bit later, but I think that it really depends on a number of factors, and I think one of them is really motivation. Why are we doing this practice? Are we doing it because we want to get a bit of bliss, or are we doing it for what reason? I think that's going to be, if we're doing it because we want to get a bit of bliss, I suggest you're going to give up. You're going to give up. But if we're doing it because we understand that this is the doorway to genuine happiness, and this is the doorway for me to be able to effectively help others, then I think with that motivation based on that, I think that we're going to put some effort in, and we'll persevere because we'll see the enormous benefits in our life. So, yeah. So really, a lot of it really comes down to the motivation. I mean, there are other factors which we're going to talk about, but that's one of the key elements. And and unfortunately, in the modern world, we want a quick fix, And that's how, unfortunately, mindfulness is often presented as a quick fix in some of the modern mindfulness traditions, and that's tragic. Because, these modern mindfulness traditions, often they take mindfulness from the Buddhist context, but then they look at all these other things, they go, oh, no, that's that religious stuff, let's get rid of that. Ethics, oh, no, throw it out. And then they present bare mindfulness, like they present it like the magic pill of mindfulness. Here, take this magic pill of mindfulness and all your problems will go away. They won't go away. In fact, they could get worse. Because if we have a dysfunctional lifestyle and we add mindfulness to that, we'll get better at cheating people, deceiving people. We're going to get more and more suffering. And so now, based on that, and this is how, unfortunately, is tragic, is mindfulness is often presented. And often people do it because they can make a lot of money out of it. They don't really offer much. Just give me your money. I'll give you the magic pill of mindfulness. All your problems will go away. And that's how often it's presented. And it's tragic. So much so now that there's some articles coming out because people are doing that and they're seeing that not only are they not benefiting, but they're getting a lot of problems. And so I saw one article recently that was titled "The Dark Side of Mindfulness." There's no dark side to mindfulness. There's a dark side to using mindfulness without a framework.
I'm slightly
Sorry.
jesting about the bliss question, but I think like a lot of people can stick with a diet or stick with an exercise program because they see results. I think what my question is really is like, what are not the results in terms of how I can gauge where I'm on the path, but what are the results that I can actually see in my daily life that I can use as kind of signposts?
Right. So again, what I was trying to suggest here is that if all you're doing is a little bit of mindfulness meditation, but you're not taking care of other factors, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow and later, I suggest you're not going to notice much change. Because that little bit of mindfulness, you're going to be working completely against it by all the other things you do or you're not doing. So if we do that bit of mindfulness daily, plus we take care of some other important things to have a good framework, then I think quite quickly we can notice some positive impact in our life. We don't have to wait years for something to happen. But if we just do a little bit of mindfulness and don't take care of anything else, particularly if we have quite a dysfunctional lifestyle, I think you're not going to notice much.
Chasing the water rabbit.
You really, it's a bit like, if we go to the gym for 5 minutes a day, but the rest of the day we're eating junk food and drinking lots of beer and sitting around doing nothing. I mean, I don't think 5 minutes at the gym is going to do much to help.
Are we supposed to focus only on Shamatha, like for an extended time, then Vipassana, or?
I'm going to answer that tomorrow, because this is Vipassana up here. So the answer will come tomorrow, but this brief answer is no. The brief answer is that we don't just practice Shamatha and then sort of get that done, and then we do Vipassana. Because actually, without bringing in some compassion and Vipassana, we're not going to get Shamatha done, because there's going to be too many obstacles. So we need to, like a balanced diet. If you eat just protein, that's not going to be good. You need to have the food groups balanced. So similarly here, we need balance. How that balance looks like, I'll give more information later, because that balance will shift depending on where we are. But we need balance. Okay, let's leave it there and let's finish with the Shavasana meditation.